Hello, and welcome back to another Shatterproof speaker series. My name is Renee Barros, and as you probably already know, I work at Shatterproof as a community engagement director. Today, we are talking with a powerful mother-daughter duo, Samantha and Nicole Senia, who are the hosts of the podcast, The Power of We. This dynamic podcast peels back the curtain on sobriety, sanity, and survival. The Power of We creates space for women to call out their chaos and gain tools to live an authentic, inspired life. The Power of We dives deep into topics women most desire to explore but are often afraid to address. The Power of We isn't afraid to take on the taboo and the tough world of sobriety, recovery, and reinvention from the inside out while providing an inclusive space where women can be themselves, connect with their dreams, and receive tools to create a winning mindset. Ladies, welcome.
Hi.
Thank you for having us.
This
Thank
is so
you.
exciting.
Perfect timing for Mother's Day to talk to a mother-daughter duo.
Yeah.
Nicole, start by walking us through your journey to sobriety. What did that look like?
It's been a crazy journey. To sobriety. Okay, so I attended university. We'll back up a little bit. So in college, in high school, I didn't really drink a lot. I didn't do drugs, but when I did drink, I blacked out, and that's just how it was for me. I could never take one drink. I could never do one drug. It was always, that's it for me. I was blacked out. And then, it didn't really progress too much, but then I got to college and I was put into this surrounding of just everyone doing drugs and drinking alcohol. And it was just this.
And it wasn't you at all.
Yeah, I felt like I needed to take something to fit in because it made me so uncomfortable because I was just surrounded by all of this outside pressure and all of this sense of, oh yeah, you need to drink this.
Yes.
Like, it's cool, It was like the thing to do. It wasn't like, oh, let's meditate and that's fun. It was like, it wasn't.
Sure. Sounds like a typical college experience, right?
Exactly.
There's very much
And that's what's
party
crazy.
culture.
That's what's crazy, that it is a typical college experience because it shouldn't be normalized in society that kids are going out and drinking all day, every day, and not really learning in college because college is supposed to be to learn.
Mm-hmm. So at what point did you realize, like, I'm headed down a slippery slope or I might have an issue here?
So I actually.
She didn't realize. I realized.
Well, yeah.
Got it.
Okay. A lot of the times when you are in the addiction, you don't realize you have a problem. You think it's everything else. I thought it was everything else. I didn't think it was the drugs and alcohol. I was like, oh, everything else is the issue. And then finally, when I went to my mom for help and I was like,
well, actually, that's not what happened. What happened was my son called me and said, Mom, you better be a good mom and get your butt to college because something's wrong with Nicole because she's posting and she's like 70 pounds. And I'm like, what is going on? She's not answering my calls. So listeners, if you're a mom and the kids aren't calling you back, let me tell you right now, that is a problem. So I knew something was happening. So I put my two dogs in the car and I drove to where she was going to school. And I went and I just watched. Now, I wasn't sober at this point. So I watched and I could not believe what was happening in college. When I tell you, I went to San Diego State and people partied back then, but this was insane. They were doing blunts. They were wasted all the time. It was insane. So then basically she decides,
I decided that night that my mom.
So how did you do that? Did you watch from a distance or like were you just staying nearby or?
Really great question. It's so important when you're going to do this, you have to watch. You can't give your opinion. You have to be quiet. And that's very hard for me.
And it was surprising for me because usually my mom's the one who wants to drink with me and party with me. So she came up and she didn't want to drink with me. She didn't want to party with me. She was just watching me. And I was like, this is weird. You seemed, even though she was faded, she seemed like she knew deep down something was happening. And so, I was very unhappy at the time. I was very depressed and I felt shameful because I knew I was doing something that I shouldn't be doing.
Right. Sure. And add to that, college is an extreme change in lifestyle and comes with its own pressures and success. All of that add to the pressure. So I could see how the problem would be exacerbated. So who found sobriety first?
You're gonna make me cry. It's really, I used to be the fun mom. So I thought anyway. So I had them when I was like 29. So when I got divorced, basically I'd go and drink with my friends. I'd go and have wine every night. And I thought, one wine turned to five glasses. And basically the wine changed me. It made me irritable. It made me upset. And my kids didn't want to hang out with me. No one wanted to be around me. I'm running this big company and I'm empowering women, but what am I doing? And I'm doing life coaching and I'm drinking. Well, the drinking, a lot of people don't realize the drinking totally changes your whole brain. So, and it makes you make really dumb decisions. So the end all is I was at a bar and all of a sudden I hear Samantha, and it was my son's friend saying, hi, let's do shots together. And I knew when I woke up the next day, I was in big trouble. And I got a call from my son. He said, if you don't stop drinking and go to rehab, then I'm never speaking to you again. And my kids are my life. So I didn't have I couldn't just go to rehab because I had a big company. I had to pull it together. And that's what I did. I pulled it together. I found a program. I listened to Craig Beck, who I really respect, and he helped me so much. It's definitely about scientific. And that was the first place I went. And it was hard. I'm not going to say it was easy. It was super hard. They didn't speak to me for the first 6 months, and then little by little, they started speaking to me and I realized they're doing what I did. They are following after my footsteps. I taught them how to be alcoholics and drug addicts. I wasn't necessarily into the drugs, but the alcohol was my thing. So, and so I realized that, Nicole had a problem. And I basically had to take her in, and I naturally detoxed her. I kept her next to me. I could only do what I could do.
And at this point, I mean, I was so damaged and traumatized and emotionally damaged, really, that I was willing to get sober at this point. And I think that is really important because you can only get sober if you want to be sober. And that's the reality of it. No one can force you to be sober. I mean, I've tried to get sober before, it didn't work because I didn't want it enough. This was the time I was at my worst. I was at the lowest point in my life. Like, I wanted to get sober. I knew that I needed to get sober in order to survive. And then luckily I had my mom there, and she walked me through and showed me what it was like to be sober, and showed me how to live that life, which is like a whole different lifestyle.
It's insane. So I mean, the last piece of it is that she got sober, and then she came to me and said, I think Brandon, my son, has a problem. So within a month, my son got sober as well. So all three of us are sober, which is huge.
Wow. Well, congrats to you both on your sobriety. I'm glad that you guys were able to help each other walk through that. And that, Samantha, you had this moment where you realized that your role as a mother and leading your children and teaching them the proper way to deal with life had to change.
Yeah.
So that's great. So what types of things do you guys do to stay sober?
A lot.
Yeah.
But we talk about this a lot. We're like, you know what, at first, if you're going sober, you think, I'm never going to have fun again. How am I going to date? How am I going to do anything? And seriously, what do we always say?
I mean, we have more fun sober now than we ever did when we were using or drinking. And I mean, I do have to say, one of the things that keeps me sober is believing in a higher power, and believing that you can believe in any God you want, but I have like a higher power that keeps me in today and in the moment. And with that, I use meditation, and that keeps me in the moment. So I can pause when agitated and stop in that moment and just really realize that I am here on this earth, and that there's no issues. All that matters is that I'm sober and I'm here and I'm present and I'm here to help others.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
And also, one of the really important things that I like to tell our listeners is that, having a program is one thing, but also having a coach, a life coach, is so important because, you can get sober. That's amazing. And it's changed our life, but it's also nice to talk to somebody else. And the life coach really helped us learn to meditate, learn to quiet our brains, learn to focus on our careers, focus on everything. I mean, since we've been sober, things have just skyrocketed for us. So that's really, important.
Wow. In what ways have your relationships with family members or even in business? Because I know you run a very successful home staging business, right? And you guys work together.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did becoming sober change any of those relationships?
Well, I mean, first of all, for our family. I mean, like I said, my kids weren't speaking to me. I was losing a lot of my friends. I was, kind of toward the bottom. I mean, I'd be out networking and I'd have people call me the next day saying, I was so scared for you last night because you were drinking. How embarrassing. I was totally embarrassing myself and I didn't even care because as alcoholics, what we do is we just pretend like nothing happens, right? So now it's like I don't have that anxiety anymore. Everything's smooth. My family is so close. My son, my daughter, and we are like amazing.
I mean, we have such a tight bond now, like the three of us, and even me with my father too. Like I can go to any of my family members and talk to them about anything. And before, I can honestly say I couldn't do that because I didn't have that connection with them. Now I'm able to be honest and open with all of my family, and we don't hide anything from each other. So that's huge. We don't judge each other, and it really helps build a good relationship.
Yeah.
That's got to be so relieving to just be able to live your truth, right?
Yes, that's huge. That's the best statement ever. And that's what we would like to get across on our podcast because living your truth is completely different than fading yourself out and pretending to live your truth.
Absolutely. So let's dive into the podcast. How was the podcast born? I'll let you answer that first before I add more questions.
Okay, well, this is an interesting story. So the podcast was born because I own Elite Home Staging, which is a staging company. I also own elitemason.com, which is a website where you can go on and buy any furniture, accessories, or you can create a mindful corner.
And you can do we have virtual design, so that's a cool part of it too.
So I was looking for a publicist to help me with that. And all of a sudden, I talked to a lot of people in Hollywood and it just wasn't a right fit for me. And so a friend of mine who's on, a news channel, she sent me two people and she sent me Lori, our publicist. And when I connected with her, it was like she was actually real and listening and we just connected. And so when we went to sit down, I was so excited because I thought she was going to help us, and she heard our story and she said, well, I have good news and bad news for you. And I'm like, what's that? She goes, the good news is that I totally want to do a podcast with you guys, but it's not for Elite Mason. I'm all, what's it for? And she goes, your story. And I went, that's the higher power. And it was like amazing.
It was so crazy because right before that, when me and my mom were talking about how we want to help people. Like that's what we do in our company. We try to empower women a lot. Mm-hmm. So we're like, what can we do where we can help people get sober in the same sense? And then this happened. So it was just the coolest thing ever.
Wow. So I think Oprah said it best when she said, like, at our best, we are all teachers. And I think that so many things happen to us in life for no good reason at all. But at the lowest level, at the very least, the things that are hard for us to deal with, we can then turn around and help other people deal with them. So it sounds like you guys have walked through this hard journey to sobriety and have learned a lot along the way and probably want to share that and help other people on their walk to sobriety. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, exactly.
And I spent a lot of time, even though when I was drinking, I hired sales reps, which I was one of the first companies to do that, stylists. to empower them, to show them that they could start a career in staging when nobody did this, right? They could start a career. They weren't designers. And I taught them how to do this and become salespeople. People used to say, how can you do that? And then all of a sudden other staging companies wanted my stylist. So did all that. I was empowering. So we are all on this journey walking home, and you never know where it's going at a certain point.
Yeah, but you have these things that happen along the way, and it sounds like when you met Lori, something just clicked, and it's from something greater than yourself, and there's a bigger purpose.
She's amazing. She's definitely from another planet.
Aw. So tell us more about the podcast. What type of things are we going to learn? What topics, what guests do we have coming on?
Well, we're really excited about the podcast. We have a wide variety of guests, and that's the great experience about our podcast. And it's a place where people have real stories, and they can really have a place to listen to that's safe, and that's really important for us. Some of the guests we have Gary Mandel, who's amazing, and we learned so much about Shatterproof, and we got to share it with all of our listeners who, I mean, it's such an amazing thing. And
it's so cool because so many people come to us and go, they don't want to do one program or another, but now I can say, this is where you can go if you really don't know what to do, because there's so much information on there. So many people don't like one program or they don't like another program, but this is about scientific, so it's so important. It's just such a great place to go for listeners that really don't know what to do, whether you're using, whether you're not using, whether your child is using. It's really helpful. So we were so excited to be involved with this.
Yeah.
Working in the addiction space, I often hear from people who are in recovery that the things that they learn in recovery are just good ways of living life, even if you don't struggle with a substance use disorder. So it sounds like it would be helpful to anybody, not just people, on a journey to sobriety, I should say. So what are the long-term goals? At its best, what do you hope the power of we accomplishes?
That we can reach as many people that we can, because we want them to know that they're not alone in this journey. And there's so many people struggling that it makes me cry. There's so many people struggling. It's insane. And for me, I came into this without judgment. And I'd like parents to know, listen to your kids. Don't judge them because they're in pain. Please. That's the one thing I want out of this.
And I really want to end the stigma in college. I mean, right now, drugs and alcohol, it's such a prevalent issue, especially in the college culture. And that's something I want to get across to my listeners through this podcast, is that you can go out to a party and you can be yourself and have fun, and you don't need drugs and alcohol to fit in.
Yes.
Or to feel like,
amen.
Yeah. Or to feel anything. I mean, you can just live life, and there are other tools that you can use in order to feel good. And that's a huge thing I want people to realize.
I think that is one of the biggest things you guys can do to support us in our efforts is try to eliminate stigma. And that just comes by being open and willing to talk about it. Right. So, which leads me to a good segue here. Thank you, ladies, both so much for just coming on, talking about your journey to sobriety, telling us what's to come with the power of we. We're so looking forward to supporting that.
Thank you so much.
So for more information, please follow Nicole and Samantha at The Power of We Official on Instagram, and you can find more information about how to tune into their podcast. Ladies, thank you again so much for being here.
Thank you, Renee.
So much.